Welcome back to Rav Pinson's podcast, where ancient wisdom meets modern man. This episode was sponsored by our podcast team, in honor of a sweet, happy, and healthy new year for all our listeners. Today's episode is a Rosh Hashanah edition Q&A, and the fourth in our Q&A series.
Our next question is, why is there an emphasis on symbolic foods on Rosh Hashanah? Apples dipped in honey, the head of a fish, etc. Why food, and why the names of the food? I guess the names...
You mean why? Because the names represent different things.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So this is actually something that already says in the Gemara. It says in the Talmud, and the Gemara says it's twice. Once in Krisis, and page Vav Aleph, 6a, and once in Horius at the end of Horius Yud Beis. And it's interesting that the Gemara over there, the Talmud, the way it phrases it, is Abaya says, one of the great sages of the Talmud says, that now that we establish that Simon and Milsahi, that the idea of an omen, it has value. It talks about different things that are related to that context of related to types of omens. It says that therefore, in the beginning of the year, we should, in one version of the Gemara in Christus, it says lemechel. Therefore, we should eat certain foods. And in the other version, in Hoyris, it actually says lemechse. We should see different foods. So it's not about eating, just about seeing it. There's another version in the Ran that says you should bring it to the table. It doesn't, not seeing it, not seeing it. It should be brought to the table. Now, what's the reason for these foods? We'll talk about in a second how this works. So Rashi, the classic commentator over there, says that the reason why the Talmud lists of different types of foods that we do. So Rashi says there that one of the reasons is because these foods represent foods that quicken to ripen. So therefore it represents like a blessing that's coming in quickly. Or other commentators say that these are foods that actually have a sweet taste. So it represents having a sweet year. And then the more traditional way of understanding it, the way it's colloquially understood today, is that these different fruits that we eat, or apple and honey, whatever, the fish, whatever the foods that we eat, they represent, because in their name they have some connection to what we're trying to create. So for example, we eat ruvia. Ruvia is a fenugreek. It's like a type of herb. But it says, this is what the sages say, we eat the idea of a ruvia, this type of herb. Why? Because we eat ruvia because it should be marba. Ruvia in Hebrew comes also from the word roiv in Hebrew, which is a lot. So we should have a lot of merit. So therefore, we eat this food that should have a lot of merit. But the Shalah, a classic Kabbalistic commentator in the 1600s, the Shalah Kodesh writes that if you take the word ruvia, which means a lot, we should have a lot of merits. You can also say a lot can be a lot of sins. Like, why does a lot have to be a lot of merit? So therefore, he says, and he brings down, also the Meiri brings this down, that it really means that you should have intention when you eat it to pray and daven, say, this food symbolically represents something that's sweet, ripens quickly, and represents in its name something that says a lot. So therefore, I'm going to pray that I should have a lot of merit this year, and I should have a meritorious year to follow. So the idea of the eating is a very visceral way of intake. So you're taking something from the outside, you're bringing, like you're embodying it, you're becoming into your body. So it's a way to say this idea is symbolic of this concept, whether because of its sound, or because of the way it looks, or the way it tastes, or whatever, however you understand it. And because of that, it awakens within me a certain response. So the omen itself is not something inherent within the thing that has magical power, but it's more this eating of this type of food will remind me of what I'm actually praying for, and what it should be doing to me. So it's a symbolic way of reminding myself, in a very physical way to do it. This is one way to understand the idea of a simon. A simon is like an omen. But there's also another way to understand it, which is a little bit different, which is that there is this concept of rooting blessings in something that's physical. So we find this, the Ramban talks about, Nachmanides talks about this with regards to prophecy, that certain times you see that the prophet has a certain prophecy about what will happen, and then he goes ahead, or she goes ahead and actually does something physical in this world to represent the process of what he just experienced in a prophetic state. So if you experience, like in the book of Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah speaks about that the fall of Babylon, and he says to take a scroll and throw it into the water. And just like the scroll falls into the bottom of the water, the same thing, the Babylonian kingdom will fall. Which means that there is a certain, when we receive blessings, let's just think about it this way. When we receive a blessing, let's say for a healthy year and a good year and all the things that we need in this world to function as healthy and healthy spiritual human beings, for the coming year, we receive them first on a spiritual dimension. First, there's a download, so to speak, in a spiritual realm, and then from the spiritual realm, it then becomes manifest into the physical realm. So what we're doing when we eat foods that represent blessings, of course, with our intention, because that's what we're saying, like the Shlosh said, not just it should be a lot of what? It should be a lot of blessings in our life. When we do that, we're tying the spiritual world with the physical world. So what we're doing is we're trying to draw down to say everything that we received on the spiritual realm on Rosh Hashanah, on the days of Rosh Hashanah, through our prayers, and we receive all these blessings on the spiritual realm, we're going to concretize them. We're going to draw them down into something that's physical, and therefore we're able to draw down from the spiritual realm into the physical realm. So that's sometimes we do something like in a very embodied practice. So it's not just I'm doing something in my mind. I want to have a lot of merit, so I'm going to think about that, what it means to have a lot of merit. I want to cast away my negativity, so I'm going to do that in my mind, which is really where it really occurs. But sometimes by doing something in a physical, manifest place, let's say doing the idea of tashlich, like going to a physical space and like literally emptying your pockets in this body of water, it's a symbolic act, but it sort of facilitates this process of drawing down something from a spiritual realm and it drawing down into the very tangible and physical space. So that's really the emphasis of what we're doing with apple and honey, and all the different various customs that we're doing on Rosh Hashanah is to draw down from the spiritual and like root it down into the physical world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Rav Pinson's podcast. To submit questions or to sponsor a future episode, please email ravpinsonpodcast@gmail.com. The link is in the description below. To learn more from Rav Pinson about Rosh Hashanah, you can find his book on Amazon entitled A Call to Majesty, The Mysteries of Shofar and Rosh Hashanah.